What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Geek-Stew, and today, guys, welcome back to Horror Stew. That is right, today is Friday, and today is yet again another day of horror movie stuff. And today, guys, we're actually going to talk about something that I mentioned in previous videos. This movie series is often brought up in discussions about modern horror movies and the modern genre. And honestly, I feel like this is a really good depiction of a good series. That, of course, you know how movie series are. They get drained and they get milked until there's nothing left, and this is no exception. I think that they are probably going to milk this one for a long time, and I guess we'll see. But what we're going to talk about today, guys, is a series that I both enjoy and dislike, but we're going to give some critiques on the movies The Purge, and I'm going to give you some insight on basically a TV show that for all intents and purposes was better than the movies. So if you've never seen the Purge movies, you're probably not going to understand what I'm about to say, but that's fine. But the Purge movies, essentially, the primary concept is that one day a year for, I think it's 12 hours or however many hours, basically for a period of time, all crime is legal, including murder. And there's this huge concept of this is supposed to help people get all of their violence out one day a year, and that's supposed to drop the crime rate the remainder of the year. Apparently it works in the Purge universe, or at least they're skewing numbers and statistics to show that it's quote-unquote working. But regardless of that, that's essentially the primary concept of the Purge. And that's something that we see throughout the entirety of the series. So obviously, we're just going to run through. I'm not going to go through and talk about every single movie. Mostly, I want to talk about some of the key highlights of these movies, but also kind of give you guys an idea of how many movies and how much material that is of the series. So we're going to start off with the First Purge. Well, not the First Purge, but the First Purge movie. This was released on June 7, 2013. This stars Ethan Hawke. He is a great actor, a wonderful guy. He's in this movie, so if you like Ethan Hawke, you'll probably like this. But Ethan Hawke stars in this movie, The Purge, from June 7, 2013. The primary concept is Purge Night. They're locking down. A man is running away from some rich folk who are trying to hunt him. He's a homeless man, and then he takes shelter inside of Ethan Hawke, the main character's, his house. And by hiding in his house, there becomes an issue of whether or not ethically and morally can we release this homeless person who's being hunted back out to these people who want to kill him, or basically whether or not that's right or wrong. Now, Ethan Hawke is actually a shelter salesman. Well, not a shelter, but a defense system, a shield system that protects more richer and upper middle class folks from the Purge. Because nobody's exempt unless you're a government official, or there's a couple other exceptions, I believe. But you're not exempt from the Purge unless you are a super high-ranking individual in the government, and pretty much everybody else is fair game, even if you're rich. If you're rich, you can buy these protections, and it helps to protect you. It's not always 100%, of course, but that being said, Ethan Hawke has to live with the moral dilemma of either releasing this guy back onto the streets or basically protecting him and putting his family on the line, essentially. And the rest of the films sort of have a similar ideology. The next film is Purge Anarchy from July 18, 2014. Honestly, this one is probably one of my favorite ones between this one and Election Year, which is the third film. But Purge Anarchy kind of takes on a separate entity. Basically, it's talking about not only the moral dilemma of the Purge, but the moral dilemma of seeking revenge with the Purge. You know, there's oftentimes a concept within these movies is that, you know, some of these people that are purging are probably not bad people, but maybe they are trying to seek revenge for a previous slight or something to that nature. And the second Purge movie, Purge Anarchy, actually does a really good job of explaining that, and definitely shows us what is redemption, what is revenge, and what is the path to forgiveness. And in the Purge Election Year takes it onto a whole nother spin where it shows the politics behind the Purge. And this one is, again, one of my favorite ones because the third Purge movie is, quite frankly, the one that I feel like shows the most realistic aspect of the Purge, but it's that there are these people who don't like the Purge, there are these anti-purgers, and there are even anti-purge government officials. And the anti-purge government officials are typically not welcome amongst the other people. Now, I think I mentioned this previously, but the government's called the New Founding Fathers. The New Founding Fathers don't like people who are combating the Purge because the Purge to them is a way to drive down social costs because they're killing off poor people. Now, you're probably thinking, oh man, this is really relevant, especially in today's age, and you are absolutely correct. But the Purge election year kind of goes into the concept of the politics behind it, and basically whether or not, from a political standpoint, where do you stand on the Purge? Is the Purge a good thing? The Purge is a bad thing? And not to say this in a bad way, but it definitely paints a picture that I think is very realistic for the current political parties. That being said, the next film we're going to get into is going to take a little bit more explanation, and the reason I say this is because this kind of gives into a little bit more of a backstory on why the Purge exists just in general. The next Purge movie is the First Purge. First Purge was July 4th, 2018. The First Purge takes on the role of an origin story. It takes on the role of where did the Purge come from? Who came up with the idea of the Purge, and why was it an idea to be had in the first place? And essentially, as I mentioned, the entire purpose of the Purge was to basically kill low-income people because they were, quote-unquote, a burden on the system. And that was kind of the entire purpose of the Purge just in general. So the First Purge is, it's one of those films, too, where it's not the best film in the series, but it's honestly a standard deviation when it comes to horror films, right? You have the 3 films that are really great, the first one that starts the series, then you have 2 really good movies, and then you have one that kind of has to kind of jump back and give some backstory. And then, of course, we have another film called The Forever Purge that's slated for July 9th, 2021. The details on this are kind of iffy. Some people have some different information, but basically, to our knowledge, the purpose or the plot of this film is following the presidential election from the previous Purge, which is the election year. And basically, it's going to be talking about the after effects of that anti-Purge politician outlawing the Purge on her first day in office. So that's going to be definitely interesting. That's something I was very curious about when I watched the election year Purge, because this seems like something that would have a lot of backlash amongst different political parties. So that's going to be a very interesting take to see. Now, I gave you all this description of the films, and I took a little bit of an extra moment there to kind of describe the First Purge, and then also give you some information about the Forever Purge, even though we don't have too much yet. But honestly, if you want to watch these movies, watch them. But something that I feel like is really underrated when it comes to the Purge series is the Purge television series. Now, that's what we're going to get into next. There are 2 seasons of this. It was from 2018 to 2019, and then it got canceled. Budgetary purposes is what most people, the major consensus is that they couldn't budget it out, so they got rid of it. That being said, we're going to talk about the Purge television series next, and I'm going to tell you why this, while it has its issues, is by and large much better than the Purge movies. So let's get into it, guys. The Purge television series. So the Purge television series takes on a different beast than the movies do. And what I mean by that is that the first season, it is more of they're mostly anthology-esque kind of series where it takes on different stories, and most of the stories end up convening onto one primary objective or primary story. The first series is basically a bunch of episodes just about Purge Night. And it's really great. It goes into a lot of details, and it even kind of talks about a lot of the minutia that goes into like questions about Purge Night. What do people do? What do people not do? And then the second season actually goes into a lot of the logistics that people don't really think about. For instance, in the second season, one of the primary things that they talk about is when you commit a crime after the Purge sirens go off. What happens? How do they determine that? And there's a group of people who's robbing a bank. And through the process of robbing this bank, one of the people go back in to grab another bag of money, and he basically, it's a photo finish. His foot is barely on the property when the Purge sirens go off, and they have this whole scenario where they're talking about like rewinding the cameras and determining whether or not his foot was on the property at the end of the final siren, and they end up convicting him. And it even kind of goes into talking about what happens if you do commit a crime off Purge. And it's very interesting because when you commit a crime off Purge, you are essentially no longer considered a human. You basically forfeit your rights as a citizen by committing a crime off Purge, especially violent crimes. So it's very interesting that this show, it takes place in such a weird way, and it's very interesting. Now, to kind of give you an idea of some time frames here, the first season took place in 2027, placing it between Anarchy and election year. The other season, which was in 2019, basically this one takes place in a similar time frame. Honestly, in my opinion, the second season is a lot better, mostly just because The second season, it's talking about a lot of, honestly, it talks about a lot of logistics, such as what happens if you commit a crime before after the sirens go off and all of that. And honestly, it gives you more information as to what's actually happening. So definitely season 1's good. Season 2, honestly, is better. But then they're like, okay, we're just going to cancel it. See you guys. So it's really unfortunate. It has the same creator, James DeMonico, and it's based on obviously the original Purge and everything else. And some of the folks in this TV show, really put the film to shame. The acting is absolutely on par, and the stories are absolutely fantastic. The first season, like I said, is sort of more of an anthology because each episode is following something different, but it eventually all convenes on one. Same thing with the second season. But the second season, in my opinion, does it to more of an extent of you're following all these different characters, and then it ultimately comes down to one singular boiling point. But honestly, it also gives sort of that inspiration for later movies, in my opinion, in the timeline to kind of describe to you there are anti-purgers everywhere. And honestly, it's super interesting how they display it and give that information to you, because you watch the Purge movies and it feels like, honestly, the movies are missing a lot of key details, a lot of those monotonous and arbitrary details that you don't really think matter, but then the TV shows kind of step up and give you those details that, even though they're arbitrary, are very important for a deeper understanding of the film's lore. So I'm not going to go too much longer on that, but I do want to give some final thoughts and some critiques before I finish out here. Basically, this is just my feelings and opinions on the Purge movies and everything else. But let's go into some final thoughts and give some final critiques on the series as well as the TV show. So final thoughts, like I mentioned, as always, I'm not going to say that any singular movie or any singular movie is better than the others. In my opinion, they're all best watched in sequence. If it were up to me, I would give you the watch order of First Purge, Purge, Purge Anarchy, and then Election Year. Watch them in that order because that will give you more of an understanding of what's happening. The first Purge gives you an idea of where the Purge came from. And then there's 3 Purge movies basically describing what the modern Purge is, and the proponents and the antagonists and the protagonists of the series, that being the government and basically the anti-purgers. And then after you do it that way, I would also recommend, after you watch all the movies, going and watching the TV series, because quite frankly, like I mentioned, if you watch them all, it'll probably give you the best experience. One of the things that the Purge TV show doesn't do is it doesn't give you a whole lot of backstory as to what the Purge is, but the movies, in my opinion, give more of a backstory to, if you will, a backbone to the whole series. And the TV show definitely builds off that. Now, if I had to tell you which one to watch over the other, I'd tell you to watch the TV show, because quite frankly, the TV show, in my opinion, has a lot more redeeming factors than the movies do. Not to say the movies are bad, but definitely when you get to the 3rd, 4th, 5th titles in a series, movies tend to be pretty derivative, and it sometimes can be a little iffy. But for sure, television series, fantastic. Gives you a lot of, like I said, the minor details, some of that arbitrary information that you kind of want to know about when you watch the movies. So watch the movies, then watch the TV show, or don't watch any of it. That's up to you guys. But that being said, I'm going to stop ranting. We're going to go ahead and close this off. So if you guys enjoyed this video, and if you would like to see more of this, let us know in the comment section down below, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And if you are interested in becoming part of the Geek-Stew crew, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter or leave something in the comments, and we'll figure it out from there. And as always, guys, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, stay awesome, and we will see you in the next one. See ya.